Welcome to Movies Summarized. This is going to be a summary of the 2021 mystery thriller movie, A Perfect Enemy, based on the French novel The Enemy's Cosmétique by Amélie Nothomb. The film opens with the voice of a man saying that he had been obsessed with the search for perfection ever since his youth. During what appears to be a conference, he reveals that he is an architect who, after a serious personal crisis, decided to build hospitals in Rwanda instead of designing architecture for the wealthiest 1% of the population. He concludes with a quote by the French writer Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. "Perfection is achieved, not when there is nothing more to add, but when there is nothing left to take away." Amid heavy rainfall, as the architect is escorted to a car, we learn that he is in Paris, his name is Jeremy Angust, and that his wife left him 20 years ago. While stuck in traffic, Jeremy is startled by a girl knocking on the window. Once Jeremy has lowered the window, she asks him to let her share his ride to the airport since that is where he is headed. Jeremy agrees, even though the driver gives them a confused and strange glance. Jeremy is surprised when she refers to him as Jeremiah Angust, assuming that she was at his conference, but she points out that his name is on a book in his bag. She introduces herself as Tessel Texter and adds that she is Dutch. Suddenly, Tessel realizes that she forgot her suitcase, which contains her passport. After some hesitance, Jeremy asks the driver to drive back, which he does, and they go get her suitcase. On the way to the airport, Tessel tells Jeremy that her parents chose her name because they really like Texel Island in Holland and that Texter means to weave in Latin. She continues with her banter, but Jeremy does not seem very interested. Finally, they arrive at the airport and part ways. Unfortunately for Jeremy though, he misses his flight to Lisbon. He makes a call, informing someone named John that he will have to wait at the airport for 2 hours in order to catch the next flight. Jeremy enters the VIP lounge, passing by a miniature model of the airport, and it turns out he was among the architects who designed it. A small red blob that looks like a puddle of blood momentarily catches his attention. As he browses through comments about his conference, Jeremy is once again startled by Tessel, who is standing right behind him, having missed her flight too. Tessel takes a seat in front of him and immediately begins talking to him, not stopping even when he attempts to interrupt her. When Jeremy finally tells her that he would rather not talk, she says that he is being rude. Jeremy reminds her that he gave her a ride and missed his flight as a result of it. Jeremy asks Tessel what she wants from him and tells her that he won't respond to her even though he can't stop her from talking. Tessel continues bugging him, guessing that he is a rich businessman, but Jeremy corrects her, stating that he is an architect and refers to the airport as his work. Tessel is amazed and goes over to see the model, Jeremy following her. When Tessel asks him if he is pleased with the design, he tells her that his style has improved over the years. She repeats the same quote about perfection from the conference, so Jeremy again asks her if she was present there, but she denies it. While she praises the building for being incredible, seeing the same blood-like puddle appears to distress Jeremy. After Tessel insists that he join her for a drink, he gives in and the two head over to the bar. At the bar, Tessel asks Jeremy if he has ever killed anyone, and though he assumes she is joking, she reveals that she killed someone when she was little. She asks Jeremy to visualize a detailed 3-part story that she is going to tell him, the first disgusting, the second scary, and the third ending with love. The first part begins when she was around the age of 10, living in a motor home in Rotterdam with her mother, her husband, and their 3 cats. Her mother wasn't a very good cook, and she had a hard time keeping most foods down due to their flavors and textures. Fatso, her stepfather, would slap her whenever she got rid of her food. As punishment, Tessel's mother would make her prepare the meals for the cats whenever she didn't finish her food. One day though, she suddenly began eating the disgusting cat food, finding it delicious. Tessel claims that it was her inner enemy that made her do it. Tessel and Jeremy head over to the buffet to eat. She continues with the second part of her story, when she was around 12 years old. Her only friend in school was a girl named Feline, who was the best ballet dancer there and popular as a result of it. Despite being her friend, Tessel was jealous of her perfection and her hatred for the girl kept on growing due to everything she had. Tessel claims that one night, she cursed her friend to death, her hatred causing the girl to have a heart attack, but Jeremy does not believe her. Fed up with her far-fetched stories, Jeremy leaves and heads over to the toilet. Much to his surprise, Tessel walks into the men's room. Oddly though, the man beside him does not seem to be bothered by this. While sitting inside one of the cubicles, Jeremy momentarily is concerned seeing a knife in her hand. Once outside, Tessel approaches him again, startling him, and when he asks her about the knife, she shows him that she is holding a pen. Noticing the boots and socks she is wearing, Jeremy recalls seeing her in a photo from the conference. When Jeremy confronts her about it, she denies it, claiming she has no idea who that girl is. When Jeremy calls John to confirm if Tessel was at the conference, he learns that there is no such name on the attendee list. When Jeremy forwards the photo, John informs him that the girl in is named Alice Myers. However, Tessel proves her identity by showing him her passport. Before proceeding to the third and last part of her story, Tessel accuses Jeremy of not being in love with his wife anymore, which he denies. She shares that the person she loves is dead. Continuing the story, she tells him that she moved to Paris once she was older and met the most beautiful person in the universe in a cemetery there. When the woman refused to speak to her, Tessel followed her, running after her. Eventually, she hit the woman on the head with a rock and dragged her unconscious body into a mausoleum. She then tied the woman's hands with her belt and began undressing and touching her. Momentarily startled, Tessel began laughing hysterically while the woman gained consciousness and watched her. She managed to push Tessel aside and escaped out of there. Jeremy feels sickened by her confession, telling Tessel that she is insane and needs therapy. She continues by telling him that she spent all her time searching for that woman, even mistaking and kissing some other woman at a club. After 2 years, she finally came across that woman once again and followed her back to the same cemetery. This time the woman responded when Tessel spoke to her, not recognizing her. When she introduced herself as Tessel Texter, the woman mistook her for the wife of one of her husband's friends. Tessel played along and the woman reluctantly invited her to meet at her apartment. Much to her surprise, Tessel showed up alone the next day, lying that her husband was held up at the office. She invites Tessel inside and prepares something to drink. The woman correctly guessed that Tessel was named after Tessel Island. When Tessel asked her if she liked living in Paris, she told her that it felt like having Stockholm Syndrome. Tessel began abruptly laughing, and the woman immediately recognized her as the girl who attacked her. Tessel professed her love for the woman and asked for a hug, but she rejected her, ordering her to leave. Instead, Tessel pulled out a pocket knife and asked the woman to kill her so that her story would have an ending. The woman didn't, but a scuffle ensued, and Tessel ended up stabbing her to death, not even being able to call her name out. However, she did find out the woman's name, and it turns out that she was Jeremy's wife, Isabel. Tessel boasts that she had unintentionally committed a perfect crime since no one saw her go in, and she is still free. Feeling dizzy and shocked, Jeremy heads back to the toilet to clear his mind, but Tessel soon joins him there. She confesses that their encounter was not a mere coincidence and that she wants to die by his hands. Jeremy deduces that someone told her his story and she made up the part about murdering his missing wife so that he would kill her. When Tessel continues pestering him, he bashes her head against a mirror but refuses to end her life. An announcement reveals that both he and Tessel are supposed to board the same flight and he leaves, boarding the plane. With a look of concern, Jeremy is anticipating Tessel to hop aboard the plane, but she never does, and after arguing with the flight attendants, he manages to get off. Jeremy returns to Tessel, asking her if his wife is dead. She refuses to tell him until he tells her his story, which he does. It begins when Jeremy and Isabel move to a new apartment in Paris after being married for 4 years. Jeremy wanted to start a family, but Isabel had apparently been growing distant, not eager to be intimate with him. Jeremy and Isabel had been fighting and one day he lost his temper during an argument and left. This had happened around the same time that Jeremy was working on expanding the same airport where he and Tessel are at. Eventually, he returned and brought his wife flowers. While she stepped aside, Jeremy found a ticket from Paris to Amsterdam with Isabel's name on it. Jeremy confronted her, reminding her that he loved her. He also tried to be intimate with her, but she rejected his advances, angrily pushing him away, so he left. Hoping to apologize, Jeremy had returned to their apartment after several days, but all he found was a used pregnancy test, discovering that Isabel was carrying his child. Jeremy asks if Tessel is his daughter, and she admits that she is in a certain way. She tells him the reason she is Dutch is because Jeremy had assumed that his baby would be born in Holland. She informs him that he is the one who is going crazy because he never really stepped foot off of the flight and is still sitting in his seat. Jeremy is baffled and confused, but when no one else can hear Tessel, he begins realizing that she is not real, but rather a figment of his imagination. Tessel does not exist, she is a manifestation of the daughter he never had, she is his inner enemy, and the stories she was telling him were variations of his own. She reminds him that it was he who had wished his popular classmate Frank Hoffman would die, and that the first time he met Isabel in a cemetery, he had dreamed of raping her. Instead of listening to her, Jeremy rushes off to the toilet and locks himself inside, but he cannot stop himself from remembering what really happened. After Isabel had rejected and turned him down, a distraught Jeremy returned with a pocket knife, and despite her begging, he stabbed his frightened wife. It was after he had murdered her that Jeremy found out that she was pregnant, so he had not only killed her, but also his unborn child as well. Eventually, Jeremy had driven to the construction site of the airport and dumped her dead body into wet cement so that it would sink into it and never be found, and the airport became her tomb, where her corpse still lies. Jeremy still refuses to believe that he killed his wife because he was madly in love with her. He begins hallucinating cement pouring into the toilet, and even though she isn't real, he asks Tessel to kill him quickly. Tessel begins strangling Jeremy, pushing him into the cement, and it seems as if she has succeeded. Jeremy begins remembering how he and Isabel had fallen in love and starts resisting, fighting back and pushing Tessel into the cement, drowning his inner enemy. He delusionally repeats that he did not kill Isabel, that she is alive, and merely left him. When he exits the toilet, it becomes obvious that none of what Jeremy experienced actually happened. Jeremy returns to his seat, and somewhere deep down he knows that he committed the perfect crime because no one saw him except his victim, and he is still free. Thank you for watching. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you are informed about new uploads.